Episode 15.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to the Small Business Puzzle Podcast. You must be prepared to ignite.
Struggling to get your business online? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Small Business Puzzle Podcast. Now, here's your hosts, Michael and Teresa Blaze.
Hey guys, welcome to the Small Business Puzzle Podcast. I'm Teresa Blaze. And
I'm Michael Blaze.
Yep. And today, we've got something really special for you. Okay? I want to introduce you to someone that we've been following and working with for about the last year and a half, and we've gotten to know her, and, you know, she's gotten to know us and all that, and, who I'm talking about is Kate Erickson. If you don't know her, she is the host of Kate's Take, which is a podcast that receives thousands upon thousands of downloads. It is the EO Fire blogs, which is an offshoot of Entrepreneur on Fire, and she works with alongside John Lee Dumas. When I first met her in person, it was at last year's podcast movement. And she did a really cool session on something called scrumming, which is not what we're going to be talking about today, but it's something that I had a chance to really kind of get to know and, you know, get an idea of and see, you know, how she works and how John works and just, you know, I was just really impressed. So without further ado, Kate, how you doing?
Teresa, Michael, I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me here and for your kind words. I really, really appreciate it. And wow, we got podcast movement coming up again.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm so excited about this one.
So stoked.
So many people to see.
So that brings me up to what we are talking about today. Question. When you go to an event, what are you supposed to do? I mean, what is the purpose of an event? It really depends on what you're, you know, doing, but we're going to be talking about what you should do when you go to these events. Step one, you know, and what you should do to get the most out of them.
You know, it's important to realize, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of an event. What the tips that we're going to give are going to be applicable to all events.
Mm-hmm. So, Kate, when someone first gets into the event, and let's say, you know, they've just gotten themselves checked in, they're recovering from the jet lag or whatever travel time comes around, what is the first thing that they should do to get the most out of an event?
Okay, I really, really love this topic because events are so powerful if you are prepared and allow them to be. So actually, my advice starts before you ever get to the conference, because I think one of the hugest benefits, and I believe you can both speak to this personally, one of the biggest benefits is being able to interact face-to-face with people there and build upon relationships that you already have online or brand new relationships. This is huge, right? And so the prep that I see happens before you even get there, because how much better off and how far ahead of the game are you going to be if you already have an idea of who you want to connect with, of who you want to make sure that you put yourself in front of. I mean, just before, during our pre-chat for this exact episode, you both mentioned people that you're really excited to meet and interact with at Podcast Movement. How amazing would it be if you were able to connect with those people before the event even started, before you were there? Because you guys know just as well as anybody else listening, being at an event, and Teresa, this moment that you're describing, you've just checked in, you've got jet lag, everything's moving 1,000,000 miles a minute. So,
no doubt.
Right? Yes. And it like becomes a blur. So as much prep work as you can do to have in mind who it is that you want to meet. You know, what I also love to do during prep for a conference is to establish and really deeply understand my number one goal coming out of that conference. So those are the two things that I suggest people do before you ever even get on the plane to go to the conference, is to, number one, know who it is that you want to connect with there. And you can do this by looking through the speaker sheet. You can do this by joining any online communities that the conference may have set up so that you can connect with other attendees beforehand. And, if possible, you could even set up actual meetings with people like, hey, let's get together for a coffee, or what time does your flight land? Maybe we can grab a drink or a bite to eat when we get there. So number one, who do you want to meet? Who do you want to put yourself in front of? And try and connect with them beforehand. And number two is to establish a number one thing that you want to walk away from this conference with. Is that a tactic that you're going to implement? Is it more information that you're looking for on a specific topic? Maybe it's even by the time you leave the conference, you want to, have your next podcast episode recorded that's going to be a compilation of conversations that you had at the conference.
Oh, that's a cool idea, actually.
Oh, that's a very cool idea, and it might just be something that we
I
implement.
might want to pull that off. We could. That would be easy for us.
Oh,
to
you guys
implement.
could totally rock that.
Yeah. So, let me ask you a question. Back in the days when we were doing prepaid legal, which yes, we did do prepaid legal. They used to have something called a meeting after the meeting. It was a big official conference, and then you went out and you networked and all that kind of thing. And naturally at these events, they usually have something to that effect. How would you suggest a person take advantage of networking opportunities? I mean, it's one thing to say you want to network with someone, but how do you go about doing that?
Well, I think that something to realize is that, I mentioned like maybe trying to set up a coffee or a chat with somebody, but the most unexpected moments are when you could be building the most important and biggest relationships. So don't ever throw any time aside as a time that you're not going to meet someone or a time that's not going to be valuable. I've seen more relationships built and more connections made that have resulted in not only lifelong friendships, but huge things for both parties in terms of business in the hallway between sessions. At lunchtime, when you put yourself out there and you join a group for lunch instead of eating on your own. When you go to that after party event, even though you're really, really tired, but you know that this might be the time when you're going to connect with somebody. So don't rule out times just because you think that it might not be a time that you're going to meet somebody. Every single second that you're at an event is a potential time for you to be meeting somebody and building a relationship and networking, whatever you want to call it, because what it's about is you putting yourself in the position to create that networking opportunity or to create that relationship. So don't wait for it to come to you. Put yourself out there, get uncomfortable, and you're going to make it happen.
Yeah, Teresa, I remember last year at the Stockyards. Oh man, that was so much fun. They had this big after party at the Fort Worth Stockyards, and we walked around and just met people and talked to them about their podcasts and their audience and so forth. And I remember Teresa rocked it. Even though she was told, even though she's blind, man, she was walking around the room and just chatting with people and picking up business cards. And oh man, we must have had 100 business cards when we came back. And that brings up another question.
And the thing is, I want to bring something up. Kate brought up something that I think is huge. I have a real hard time with rooms with poor acoustics and loud noise. Because I have a real hard time focusing, and unfortunately, the Stockyard was one of those places.
Yeah, that was a test for sure.
I mean, it was one of those places, and it was driving me absolutely batty. But I also knew exactly what Kate is speaking to here. I knew that we are here to network, and I had to push past that, and I had to get uncomfortable and just get out there and do it. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about. It's you find yourself in those moments where it's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And that's when you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kate, would you agree with Kate that you need to have business cards? If you don't have business cards, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot at one of these conferences?
I could actually argue that both ways. I see the value, and I like that people come prepared in that way. But at the same time, handing out a business card isn't building a relationship.
I agree with that.
in a lot of instances, like what happens to that business card? You know, there's no guarantee that you hand someone a business card and they're actually going to take the action to reach out to you. I mean, you're basically handing them a card and then asking them to do work to connect with you again. Again, I can argue both sides. I'm not against business cards, but I think that there are more powerful ways to build a connection in person than exchanging a card.
Okay.
Wait, what about, okay, so then let's say you're going to the meeting, and I guess I've got two questions that are kind of popping up in my mind, so address these in whatever order you want to address them. What is the best way to follow up with a person once you've received you've gotten their card, you've gotten their information, and you're like, you know what, I really want to click with this guy. I think, there's some good business stuff going on here. And second, outside of the networking, you're going to be getting, information and techniques. What is the best way to digest that information? And better, even further, what is the best way to actually apply it to your business?
Those are, I mean, man, this episode is full of so many great questions. You guys came so prepared. To speak to your first point, if you connect with somebody who you're like, I definitely want to leverage and further this connection, I definitely don't want this to be the last time that I talk to this person. Take out your cell phone, take out your laptop, and either set yourself a reminder or email that person immediately and set a reminder to follow up with them. Two things that are really great for this are, if you use Gmail, is Boomerang for Gmail, which allows you to create a message and then choose the time that you want it to send, and set yourself a reminder to follow up if that person doesn't respond to you. So like Teresa, if I met you at the conference for the first time and I'm like, I definitely want to stay in touch with Teresa, she just gave me her business card, let me take 1 minute to step to the side, open up my laptop, shoot Teresa an email. I'm not going to send it right now. I'll tell Boomerang to send it for me tomorrow morning, maybe. And I'm going to say, Teresa, it was great to connect with you. I'm excited to, chat further about X, Y, and Z. It was really nice meeting you. Then I'm going to also tell Boomerang to remind me if you don't answer me in a week. And then I'm going to follow up with you. I think where a lot of people go wrong with communications is they think that if they reach out one time that their job's done and now it's on the other person to follow up. That's not how relationships work. If you want that connection, you've got to work for it. So don't just send one email and then suppose or assume that it's on that person to get back to you. Another way to do this, if you don't want to shoot an email right away, or you're not going to text them, or whatever the form of communication is that you two have exchanged, I love Workflowy. And this is just an online note-taking system, very simple outline format. And what I would do is I would create a heading for people to connect with. And under that heading, I just keep a running list of the people who I'm meeting. You can have Workflowy on your computer. You can have Workflowy on an app on your phone. It's super easy to use and it syncs with your Workflowy. So once you're signed in, you're going to be able to get this information from any Workflowy that you're signing into. And I would just keep a running list of the people I'm meeting and how I'm going to reach out to them after the conference. So that's my response to your first part.
Okay. And it should be noted, we've actually tested out Workflow, and it appears relatively accessible to anyone that is a blind user of iPhones.
Awesome.
So, just in initial testing. So, Kate, you had a second point to how to get the most information out of the conference.
Yes. So this kind of goes back a little bit to the beginning of how I said before the conference even starts, I think you should have a really deep understanding of the number one thing you want to take away from the conference. The reason I feel this is so important is because you're going to go to a lot of sessions. You're going to be consuming a lot of information. A lot of people are going to be talking about a lot of different tactics and tools. And if you know exactly what you want to get out of the conference, like, for example, I want to know how to increase my listenership by 1,000 downloads a month. That's my goal in going to this conference. The sessions that I choose are going to help me figure out how I'm going to do that. The conversations that I have are going to inform me on how other people have increased their listenership. And so when you're sitting in these sessions, I'm not saying that you will not consume the other information that's being presented. You know, maybe somebody's talking about a really good monetization tactic, or maybe someone's talking about a really great way to find guests for your show. You'll still consume that information. And I would, again, use Workflowy to do so. When you're sitting in these sessions, have a Workflowy heading for podcast movement and maybe the title, the name of the session that you're in. And you could be taking notes there that you can refer back to afterwards. But when you have that goal in mind, it's going to be a lot easier for you to focus in on the information that's going to help you achieve that goal. And once you leave the conference, or in any spare time that you have during the conference, which I know is not a lot because it seems that, we go at conferences. But when you have that goal in mind, it's going to be a lot easier for you to implement on that one thing and take action on that one thing, because you're not going to be feeling overwhelmed by the millions of things that you just learned.
Right. Yeah,
Very true.
That makes good sense. One thing is the software that we're using to record this interview, Zencaster, we actually found out about at Podcast Movement. So,
awesome.
So that's how we found out about it. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to see you guys again. It's going to be a 6-hour plane flight for us. How long is it going to be for you guys?
Gosh, you know what? I'd have to take a look, but I think it's probably about the same. Where are you guys flying from?
We're flying from El Paso, Texas.
El Paso. Okay. Yeah. So actually it'll probably be a bit longer for us. Maybe more like 10 hours.
Oh,
I feel for you. Hey, so here's the thing, guys. If you're going to Podcast Movement, let us know. Let Kate know. We want to meet you. We want to meet you. We want to know that, that you're going, and, who knows?
Email is sbppodcast@gmail.com or sbppodcast.com/contact.
Love it. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, as Teresa said, we would all love to see you at Podcast Movement. And you can either connect with me through Michael and Teresa, or at kate@eofire.com. That's my email address.
So Kate, thank you so much for doing this for us. We've been looking forward to doing this for some time. And man, it took 4 months for us to hook up.
Any last words? Any last calls to action, Kate?
You know what? If you're out there listening right now, if you have resonated with some of this content, or all of this content, or one little piece of this content, then I hope that you'll take heed of the advice at the next event that you're a part of, or whatever conference you may be attending in the future. And again, really encourage you to reach out to Michael and Teresa. Let them know what you loved about the podcast, because I know that they bring the heat with their episodes. So thank you so much for tuning in.
And with that, I'm Teresa.
I'm Michael.
And you've been listening to the Small Business Puzzle Podcast.
Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Small Business Puzzle Podcast. To catch all our past shows, visit sbppodcast.com.